It's almost on time tonight, isn't it? Don't know how that happened. I have the usual last minute sort of technical questions pop up, but yeah, hey, it's another hour of good nature starting. We're back here at Good Natured World Headquarters this evening, so it's a little easier to prepare here. There's not quite as much chaos as when I'm over at Casa Auto, but we do have quite a few different things to discuss this evening, and some kind of unusual things too. I think I mentioned it in the email. We're gonna I don't know how deeply we'll discuss Ozark cave salamanders, but I did want you to see these pictures. Back in, I don't know, it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had written about the salamander monitoring that we're doing at out at not supposed to say exactly where, one of our natural areas. And following that column that ran, I received this email that I'm going to read to you here. It's from a gentleman named Mark, and he said that he, while reading, oh gosh, it just ran last week. It ran on Saturday, March 23rd. In the DeKalb Chronicle, I was happy to see your informative article on tiger salamanders. While not a biologist, I do document cave fauna while surveying and monitoring caves throughout the United States. I reside in nearby Sycamore, but do quite a bit of caving in the Ozarks, where we find a variety of salamanders, including the following. Now, here's what we're going to do: screen share number one. Let's see, gonna see if I can pick the right folder here. All right, so far so good. It says I'm screen sharing. All right, so let's move this out of the way. So he's actually kindly labeled all these, because I really, here in Kane County, well, until recently, we only had the tiger salamander that we knew of, and the eastern newt. The King County Forest Preserve folks released some information a week or two back that they have found blue spotted salamanders here in King County as well. Not exactly sure where those are, but the point is, we don't have a lot of salamander species we have to keep track of. There's a very few here, but you travel to different parts of the country, particularly the south, or actually the southeast. I didn't know until I visited the Smoky Mountains that they are the salamander capital of the world. There's 20 some. They keep finding new ones too. When I was first there, it was like 23, and now I know it's gone up since then. So salamanders, they are amphibians, so they're a good group of animals to keep track of, because they are particularly prone to disturbances in the soil, in the water, and in the air. That sensitive skin, they have that porous skin that allows them to take in oxygen, can also take in a number of pollutants and other things too. So keeping an eye on our salamander population helps us keep track of how we're doing in general, pollution wise. Now, this one is just is labeled cave salamander. These things, as I recall, have pretty long tails, as we can see here. And again, lives in caves. Let's see now, if I'm going to move this up and out of the way so I can find my arrows. Here we go. This one is labeled the dark-sided salamander. And that is on a, oh gosh, stalagmites hang from the top, and they stick tightly to the top. A stalagmite comes up from the bottom.
We're not seeing different photos.
You're not seeing them?
No, we're still on the list of the files.
Oh no, it says I'm screen sharing, and you're not seeing this cool picture?
No, we're just seeing the files.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to go here. All right, I'm going to try this again. If you're lucky, you might see the wheels turning inside my head. All right, let's try
If we're
this.
lucky.
That would mean that there's
There.
actually
Yeah.
wheels turning. Does that work?
Oh, yep.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back. Okay, so this was the first one we talked about. This is the cave salamander. This is the salamander with the long tail that lives in caves. The next one here is the dark-sided salamander, and that's where I was talking about stalactites and stalagmites. This is inside the cave is where these guys hang out. Now, salamanders, they're all carnivores. They eat insects. Sometimes they eat each other. So the fact that they're present means that there are lots of other creatures present too, or otherwise they wouldn't have anything to eat. This is a cool one called a grotto salamander. Again, I'm not at all familiar with these, but it looks as though this might be the sort of species that, well, either this is in its larval form, or it's a species that does not ever lose its gills. I wonder if I could quick look that up while we're talking. The axolotl, we used to have one at Hickory Knolls. Now it's under the care of Mrs. Tricia, but that's the axolotl is a species that even as an adult, it retains that larval look. And it does not ever lose its gills. Well, looking at some pictures here on my phone of grotto salamanders, they have the same color, but as an adult, they don't have the gills. So this must be a larval form of the grotto salamander. Still pretty cool, and it looks like, gosh, their eyes look like they're really tiny. So this could be a species that doesn't. And these other ones, like the dark-sided salamander, they do have eyes, which of course would be useless if they were living in complete darkness. These guys, their eyes are much reduced. Here we have one larvae eating another, which again, it happens, these things. And in fact, tiger salamanders, I've always heard that they got their name possibly from their striped markings, but also possibly from the way they just open their mouth and inhale whatever happens to be nearby. And if it's another salamander, so be it. Now, these guys, I am somewhat familiar with these because we do have them in Illinois, not this far north, but you can find them down in southern Illinois. This is a marbled salamander. They are like our tigers. They are members of the mole salamander group, so they do a lot of digging. They tend to inhabit burrows a lot of the time, or be underneath logs and such. It's rare. In fact, any of these, because their skin is so sensitive and prone to drying out, you really have to go looking for them, unless you happen to be lucky enough to be out on a rainy day or night where they might venture out because they know they won't be at risk of drying out. This is the zigzag salamander. I believe we have these downstate as well. And then this one I'd never seen before. It almost looks like something you'd see in the tropics, those bold markings. This one's called a ringed salamander. And it's got these crazy, regularly spaced out markings across the back. Really cool stuff. This one, look how tiny this one is, the little redback salamander. If I remember correctly, we did find these downstate too by flipping over rocks in tiny little seeps and streams. And then this one's called the Western slimy salamander. This one has some lookalikes too. It can be difficult to identify. Some of you who are part of our KCCN or King County Certified Naturalist class might remember when we talked about salamanders, we talk about what's called the costal grooves, which are, let's see if I can you can see them on this picture here. Let me zoom in. Yeah, I can zoom in a little bit. Looks like little folds here along the salamander's back. Uh, Again, here in Kane County, we don't really have to worry because we don't have that many to choose from. But in other parts of the country, sometimes you find yourself having to count the number of grooves between the legs here on the side of the salamander in order to be able to identify it properly. And that's the case with this slimy salamander. I'm trying to remember what its look-alike is, but super cool pictures. I was really grateful to Mark and Sycamore for sharing this. When I wrote him to tell him that, he wrote back. He said, if anyone's interested, because I said this is the sort of thing that the Tuesday night nature nerds would really eat up. He said, if anybody's interested in possibly seeing these salamanders up close, the Cave Research Foundation, abbreviated CRF, is having a cave monitoring activity coming up June 13th through 23rd. It will be based out of Winona, Missouri. We have housing and meals provided, and we'll have access to hundreds of caves closed to the general public, but that need monitoring. All cave gear is provided, as well as watercraft for river monitoring. People will need to fill out a temporary joint venture agreement and provide proof of health insurance prior to the activity. Please contact me ASAP to sign up. The only cost is your travel incidentals in time. Doesn't it sound awesome? I don't know if any of you have those 10 days free. I definitely have made a little mental note to maybe check into this in the future. But if you're into caves, this sounds like a fabulous opportunity. If you are, go ahead and reply to your invite tonight and let me know, and I can send you Mark's information. You can talk to him in further detail about that. Yeah, I thought that sounded like a great opportunity. And it's not just caves, not just salamanders. It sounds like they're doing all kinds of things. So if you're interested, let me know. All right. Well, gee, now that I stopped that, I'm a little afraid to start another share, but I'm going to give it a try. Let's see. So we're going to segue now smoothly, you'll notice, into the photos that I've gathered over the past week. As I mentioned in the email, we do have some old return of some old friends, and also some new things to discuss. So let's see, let's start here. I'm going to X out of this. Now, are you all seeing pelicans?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So here is this photo was taken about a week ago. There was a group over the weekend prior to this past one. People counted as many as 80 pelicans north of St. Charles. And there might have even been more than that, depending on where you were viewing from. If you're familiar with that area, we were around, they were around the old Hideaway restaurant near Tekawitha Woods. And the Park District, we actually have a little known park up there in that neighborhood, the Valley View region, called Tally Park. And that's where these photos were taken. It was either last Tuesday or Wednesday. And there were still quite a few. We had some really strong winds back then, and that did affect the birds. These birds have enormous wingspans, and it can make it really difficult for them to take off. I don't know that they're still up there. The talk about pelicans up there has kind of died down for now, but we are definitely in that time when we could see more pushing through. This is a bird that migrates down to the southeast, where it spends its winter, but then it goes, instead of a straight north migration, it goes northwest up into the prairie pothole region of North Dakota and up into Canada. So You can see a lot of them have their breeding bumps on their bills. This is something that they grow in order to show fitness and you know, just something that comes along with the breeding season. It's also something that apparently falls off. And another thing on my list to do is to someday go up to their breeding territories to see if I can't find some of those discs that have fallen off. Now, there have been reports. In fact, I remember several years ago being in downtown Oregon, Illinois, and seeing pelicans there. And it was the middle of summer. I want to say it was July, which would seem to indicate that they're breeding there now too. So maybe I wouldn't have to travel all that far in order to find those breeding bumps. But keep your eyes open. They do fly pretty high when they're covering, lots of ground, and they don't make a noise the way the sandhill cranes do. So you kind of got to be observant, but yeah, keep your eyes open over these next few weeks, because we could see a few more waves of them coming through. Now this literally, I just got about half an hour ago. My phone, actually, I was looking up something else and this message popped up. This is an eastern towhee that is having a little snack of some seeds from our friend Clarice out in Sugar Grove. And then this made me late for a meeting yesterday. This is in my neighbor's tree directly behind my house. I was letting the dogs out. I was supposed to be somewhere at 9. And so I let the dogs out about 8, I don't know, 35 or so. And this pretty large bird went fluttering up from my backyard neighbor's yard. They do have a feeder. I don't know if it has food in it right now, but I had to look twice because all I saw first was large image, moving upward. And then when I saw it land in the tree, I thought, oh cow, that looks like a duck. And it is, it's a wood duck. We do get mallards pretty often in our neighborhood. When they go out on dates, you'll see the male as he's courting his intended, they'll walk around, and I think they visit a lot of bird feeders too. But it's not a great picture. This was through a pretty dirty window, and I had my camera zoomed in all the way, but you can definitely see those distinctive markings. I wish you could see the beautiful colors. You'll have to go out and find some wood ducks of your own, but the male wood duck is really one of those truly astounding assemblages of blues and there's blue and green, there's tan, there's black, there's white, there's red around the face. It's really a sight to see. And it's a bird that they don't go real far south, but we don't typically see these guys here in the winter. So this is another sign that things are progressing. We are into April after all. So that's another thing to keep your eyes peeled for. If I had them in my neighborhood, which is well, it's actually more than 7 blocks west of the river, but it's not really what I would call wood duck habitat at all, but still pretty cool. Something you too might be able to find. Now this next series of photos were from a walk, the Nature Nerd walk at Norris Woods. This was last Friday. There are a lot. Remember last fall we had a huge mast year. We had a lot of seeds hitting the ground from all sorts of different kinds of trees. Pretty much anything that made a fruit was, in overdrive producing seeds. And there are just a ton of these germinating oak acorns. I believe the ones we were looking at, these are all shaped like white oak acorns. And a lot of them, you just push aside a few leaves that are down there on the woodland floor. And what do you see? You see all these little oak trees trying to make a go of it. Now, will they all survive? No. A lot of them are going to get nipped. There's a lot of things that like to chew on little seedling plants. And so little seedling oaks in particular. So we'll wish these guys well, but it always just kind of makes me a little, I don't know, dreamy to think about how some of those oak trees at Norris that are 100, 200, maybe even 300 years old, this is how they started out. So I hope at least a few of these are able to hang in there for the next 2 or 3 centuries. And this, you guys know me, and I can't resist a good scat photo. Last week we had the scat in the form or shape of the number 10. This one is a triangle. It's deer scat. They are these are all kind of clumped together. It's just a teensy weensy little dollop. Here's our 2 5/8 inches measurement. In fact, here's another acorn in the background here as well. But the shape struck me. It's relatively fresh too, so it hadn't been there all that long, but it was teensy. So it must have just been a spur of the moment deposit by a passing deer, of which there are many at Norris Woods. Now the spring beauties are up, and they are present in small clumps throughout the woods there at Norris. And by the way, Norris Woods, I was talking to someone today and I thought we were on the same page. And then they said something about the pet memorial at Norris Woods. The pet memorial, so St. Charles Park District has Delnor Woods and Norris Woods, both related to the Norris family. But Norris Woods is the park that is behind Bethlehem Lutheran Church on 3rd Avenue. In fact, may as well put this out there too. We are going to be hosting on Saturday a little reception in the parking lot of Norris Woods about, well, I guess it was last fall. I was going to say it was a year ago. It wasn't that long ago. We heard from a group called the Old Growth Forest Network. They're based up in Michigan, but what they are trying to do is honor old growth forests throughout the United States. And Norris Woods was nominated along with, I think, about 4 or 5 other wooded areas in Kane County, and Norris Woods was chosen to be the recipient of the honor of being inducted into the Old Growth Forest Network. Now, is Norris Woods really an old growth forest? I think there's, by that definition, by the definition I'm aware of, where there's a preponderance of old growth trees. I wouldn't really call it that, but it does have some of the oldest trees in that part of town. So hey, we got the honor. We're going to go with it, and we are going to welcome a couple of representatives from the Old Growth Forest Network at Norris Woods at 1 o'clock this coming Saturday, April 6th. So if you can join us, great. There'll be a brief ceremony, and following that, we're going to have a couple different walks. Our buddy Ryan, who's our lead restoration ecologist, he's going to be leading a wildflower walk. And I'm going to take out anyone who wants to go look for birds. The weather is supposed, I heard we're supposed to have snow tomorrow, is that right? But it is supposed to warm up again towards the weekend. I think the temperature is supposed to be around 50 degrees or so. So if you're looking for something to do early Saturday afternoon, it'd be really keen if you could come out and join us, because it'll be a good time. You can see stuff like this. You can see the spring beauties. You can also see the trillium that are starting to pop up. We also saw May apples that were pushing up through the ground. A couple of them almost had their little umbrella-like leaves starting to unfurl. Now, today and tomorrow, they're probably going to, curl back up again, but they'll be out again once the sun shines some more. But I love this time of year because you really see the woodland floor starting to wake up again. These flowers that have been dormant, once they bloom, we don't really see, a lot of the foliage doesn't last all that long afterwards. This is part of the group of flowers we call the spring ephemerals. So their presence is fleeting. They want to come up, get their leaves out, soak up some sunshine, create their flower, turn that flower into seeds, and then you just finish all that business before all the leaves on the trees come out and this the woodland floor gets fully shaded. Doesn't work so well for, at least not for these early spring species. They need the sunshine. That's another reason why we do so much restoration work. That's why we're pulling out so much of that shrubby undergrowth, those honeysuckle. Northwoods has honeysuckle. They also have a lot of Norway maple that our crews have been working very hard at removing to open that woods up and let that sunlight hit these flowers down there on the floor. So you can see from behind this tree, you can see sort of the state of things. Some things up here, primarily honeysuckle, are starting to bloom, although there was a nice serviceberry that was starting to leaf out somewhere behind this log. But I had to stop and take a picture of this. This was not all that old. This was some activity on a downed tree that was performed by a bird we know is the pileated, or some say pileated, actually most say pileated woodpecker. These holes were enormous. Now, I didn't put up my lip balm, but our friend Alice kindly stepped in to take a look so you can get a sense of the scale. I mean, we could have put an entire fist inside of these holes. I was really curious as to what might be in there that they were feeding on. These are not nesting holes. These are feeding holes. They're foraging for, I'm guessing, beetle larvae of some sort. Possibly ants, but the pileated woodpecker, they're the size of crows. Their diet, they eat tend to eat larger insect prey, and so I'd imagine there was some kind of boring as in wood eating, wood boring larvae inside of this tree. I fished around a little bit, couldn't come up with anything, but I got a beak, but it's not really capable of doing this kind of work. I'll have to maybe go back again on a warmer day and see if we can find any evidence of anything that's pupating out of those holes, or if the woodpeckers did indeed finish everything that was living inside there. We did have a few years ago a pair of pileated woodpeckers that nested at Norris Woods. It'd be really cool if they decided to do that again. Other woodpeckers I was hoping to see, but did not on this particular day. We're going to hold out hope that maybe we see them on Saturday, is the yellow-bellied sapsuckers. They've been moving through as well. They're the woodpeckers that, instead of making these giant gashes like this, they make the holes that are in nearly perfect horizontal rows. They are, true to their name, sap sucker. Well, they're not actually sucking the sap, but they are pecking through to the layers of tissue underneath the outer bark, the xylem and the phloem. They're trying to tap in so that they can create little sap wells that they can come back. And they not only feed on the sap, but then they will also feed on the insects that come to feed from the sap. So there was just the other day, someone saw one in Big Rock. So something else to be keeping an alert for. Now, this was something, I remember John Doerr explaining this to me several years ago about how the white oak's distinctive bark isn't all the white oak's doing, that there's actually a fungus that grows on the bark that it digests layers of bark and produces this effect. So I took a picture of it and then I looked up the name. I'm going to see if I can make that a little bit bigger for you here. Let's move this out of the way. So this is these fungi grow as tiny little discs, and the common name I was able to find was the hop hornbeam disc because yes, it grows on hop hornbeam too. Another name for hop hornbeam is ironwood. And we do have a lot of ironwood at Norris Woods as well. But this is a fungus that sometimes it's listed as a parasite. And I was trying to figure out if it really would qualify or not because it doesn't feed on any living tissue. It feeds on the dead bark. It makes it sound like the tree said. The outermost part of the outer bark is not living. You have to go through into the inner bark to get to the living tissue of the tree. The outer bark is the protective layer. Well, this fungus digests it and creates this smoother whitish color. Now, white oak is named not for its white bark, but for its the color that the wood is for woodworking. If white oak as compared to the wood of the red oak, which has a much deeper hue to it. But I thought this was a really good example of the effect, which I look at this, and this is a pretty typical looking white oak tree. And I remember John saying, you know, white oaks, that typical look they have, they're not responsible for it. It's actually the fungus that lives on the bark that produces that effect. I thought that was pretty cool. And you can see this throughout North Woods and pretty much anywhere around here that we have white oaks. This is something else that caught our eye. This is the gallery of a bark beetle. And I have been racking my brain for since last Friday, trying to remember, because there's different groups of bark beetles, and they act in different ways when they're underneath the bark of the tree. Some spread out. Well, a good kind of sad example would be how the larvae of the emerald ash borer behave when they're underneath the bark and they're feeding on the living tissue between the outer bark and the heartwood. Yeah, they make these long channels. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor moving around, but it's very distinctive, long, maybe 1/4 inch wide pathways through the it kind of gouges into the heartwood underneath the inner bark. Well, these guys, these bark beetles, the female, the adult female will lay a cluster of eggs here, and then the larvae, as they feed, will proceed out in these radiating little branches here. So if I'm remembering correctly, this is the work of several larvae, and they create, and sometimes these marks are nearly round in shape, but they all radiate out from this center area here. This probably isn't what killed the tree, but you get a lot of bark beetles feeding on the living tissue of a tree, and yeah, it's not going to be very good for that tree in the long run, but leaves some really cool evidence behind, doesn't it? Let's see. So this actually, so we left Norris Woods, or I left Norris Woods. I had to leave the group because I had to work Friday night at our flashlight egg hike, and this was something I was set up at the insect station. So flashlight egg hike, it's always held around Easter, but it's a nature takeoff of an Easter egg hunt. Potawatomi here has hosted for years the annual egg hunt that entails months of preparation. We have all kinds of volunteer groups that come in and stuff eggs with candy, and then they're distributed in the park, and then families show up, somebody yells go, and within 30 seconds, all the eggs are picked up and it's over with. The Hickory Knolls egg hike is more of it's a learning event as much as it is a gathering event. You go from station to station, and like Laura, I know you were working the bird station. I was at the insect station. I think we had frogs. We had all different creatures that lay eggs. Families would walk through, stop at the station, learn about that group of animals, and then get their egg that was themed to that particular station. So like the eggs I was handing out had little toy insects inside of them. Anyway, there's a lot of downtime in between when the groups are passing through, and I noticed and by the way, it's all outside too. This goes through the Hickory Knolls, the eastern part of the Hickory Knolls natural area. So I happened to notice that there were some twigs that might become eye pokers, especially as the sun started to set. This is the flashlight egg hike. So didn't want anybody to get injured. So I broke off some stems, and then, in my brain, I'm going, wait a minute, we're supposed to save this. We're supposed to leave the stems. We're not supposed to bother the stems. Here I am in the natural area of all places. I'm taking out stems. So I thought, since I've got them here and since I'm at the insect station, maybe we could turn this into a little bit of a teachable moment. So one of the sticks that I had broken off, one of the stems had sort of split. So I opened it, and sure enough, we leave the stems to create habitat for developing insects. And if you can see it, I'm gonna zoom in and go over here. So here's one. I don't know, it sort of looks like it's not alive anymore, but it also might just be not very happy because it was pretty chilly Friday night. But here's one that was diving back into its channel. This is all the pith that is inside. I believe this is a goldenrod stem. And there were actually lots of these little galleries and holes here that are, here's one, here's a larvae inside here. Here's one over here. These were more obvious when I first peeled that top part of the stem away, but it's like I pulled the blanket off, so they wanted to burrow back in. I did try to put the stem back together again. I don't know, if it was enough to save these guys or not. I felt a little bad about disturbing their long winter's nap. I also learned that families that are on a semi-Easter themed Friday evening type of event, they're not really all that interested in hearing about saving stems. And it was really hard to see these after it started to get dark. So I sort of gave up on that end of things, but I took a picture for you guys because I thought you would appreciate it. And then this was next to my station too. These are oak bullet galls, specifically the rough bullet gall. And they caught my eye because there was just so many of them. Now, and a mature oak tree, bullet galls aren't that big of a deal. They might curb some of the growth of some of the smaller twigs and stuff, but on a developing oak like this, and I think this is a baby bur oak, that's primarily what we have growing behind the nature center, and that is the species. I think this gall might only grow on bur oaks. I don't know that it would grow on a white oak, but I don't know how well this young oak is going to develop. Looks like we've got this bud here is out of focus. I was focusing more on the galls, but it might survive, but it might also be kind of weirdly shaped. These are galls that are caused by gall wasps. And I'm going to open up again. I'm going to minimize this because there was so much to take in here that I was afraid I wasn't going to remember it all. This is, galls, they have a lot of crazy twists and turns to their life cycles. And there's a lot of times, there's instances where it's It's not just a single plant, it occurs on 2 plants, and sometimes it takes 2 years for the gall-forming insects to fully develop. Um, in this case, it's an annual life cycle, but it does have 2 separate stages to it. Um, so what comes out of these galls is they're all females, and they will lay eggs on the terminal buds. So here, this part, if you can see my cursor circling the blurry bud that's above these galls and next to this other set of galls. So they will insert eggs into those dormant buds. And then the following spring, those wasps that are in those developing buds will produce their own little galls in which they will develop within. And they are, so that first generation in the fall, they are all females. This next generation that comes out in the springtime, those are males and females. So then they go and they lay eggs that produce these rough bullet galls, and then those all female wasps emerge in the fall, and it starts over again. Isn't that crazy? Just this one little thing. And oaks are somewhat famous for all the different types of galls that they have. This is one that has it's really complex, and the fact that they can have a female only generation that then produces eggs that are of both males and females. It's just crazy stuff. You can't make this up. And this is a readily observable gall too. So keep your eyes open for these as well. If you find yourself around bur oaks, your chances are pretty good that you will find these rough bullet galls. So from teensy tiny little wasps, those wasps that make those galls are gosh, I don't even know if they're a quarter of an inch. They're really, really small. This is just a quick update. Some of you might remember this log from Christmas time. This was a gift from some friends, June and Steve. They live north of St. Charles. They were clearing some logs off their property, and when Steve cut into this one, what did he find but a honeybee colony? So it was really hard to see because it was in the center of this hollow log. Well, our friends Jim and Sue had kindly offered to cut open that log. And look at this, Jim's even put some like bumpers here and installed this plexiglass. He said he wasn't happy with the result of this glass. He said there's a little scratch on it, so he's going to replace it. I said, it's fine. It is absolutely fine. Dealing with the public, if it doesn't start out scratched, it is going to become scratched relatively quickly. But it does give us a nice view of what was going on inside of this log. This is all wax that was produced by the honeybees. And I've actually got a cup of bees, including the queen, that did not survive this invasion. This was cut down last, I think it was in November, maybe, or early December. And the worker bees at that point, they are eating the honey so that they can create heat. They can create warmth with their bodies, which will then keep their queen warm. And when you cut the nest open like that, really makes things difficult for them. So the bees did not survive, but their nest is here, and I'm hoping we can turn this into some sort of an educational display about honeybees. The reason we left the log so big is because the entrance to this nest is down here in this other part of the log. So they came in, and there's really honeycomb throughout. This just gives us a nice cross section, a peek inside the life of a honeybee colony. All right. So from here, we're going to stay within the Hymenoptera order, and we're going to look at some pictures, images captured by Jerry. These were on your house. And Jerry, I didn't even look to see, I never looked to see who's on the call tonight. Jerry, if you're here, maybe you could jump in with a little explanation of these two nests. Now, I was excited because mud daubers, I remember visiting my grandparents downstate as a kid, and my grandma would be tut-tutting about those old mud wasps and how they were always um, creating these structures on the brick um, exterior of their house. And she did leave them. She did understand, that they had a purpose, but she always thought that they made the house look kind of messy. Well, they had down there, they had what were called the organ pipe mud daubers. So those would be wasps that make long tubes. It almost looks like fingers, lined up next to each other. This is the work of, turns out there's actually probably two different mud daubers, not using the nest at the same time, but there's one that did the heavy lifting and another one that did the renovation work. Now, whether the first mud dauber was done with the nest or whether it was evicted, I'm not sure, but we do have, and this is where, and you guys will have to help me again if this screen share is going to continue or not. Can you now see the yellow-legged mud dauber page from Bug Guide?
Yes.
All right. All right. So these are the mud daubers that created the first blob of nest. So if we go back here, this large structure itself was made by the yellow-legged mud dauber. Pretty common species. If we look at Bug Guide's data, we see that they occur throughout North America. And, this doesn't mean that West Virginia doesn't have them. This doesn't mean that they're lacking in, is it Wyoming? It just means nobody's reported them to Bug Guide from those states. Chances are this is a coast-to-coast species, and they make those blobs. In the picture here, we see that this blob was also exited. So there's exit holes over here, but we also see that it's very blotchy. Chances are that means that this nest was also used by these guys here, the blue mud daubers. They don't make their own nests. They just like great horned owls don't make their own nests. They'll move into a hawk's nest or a squirrel's nest. These blue mud daubers will move into nests that other mud daubers have created. And since they are also very common, we look at them and see their same sort of distributions here. They oftentimes will take over the yellow-legged mud daubers' nests or reuse them if they're gone. And the way you can tell that is by the way there's different types of mud that were used here. It's kind of a patchwork effect once the nest has been used by more than one species. So
Okay, that is so cool.
isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it looks so orderly from the front that I was like, what is going on here? That never would have crossed my mind.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I'm so glad you noticed them, Jerry. And this other one, did you see my response to your email?
I was about to open it up when the program started, so I didn't read.
I don't know what to make of this, and I'm not, I'm not a hymenopteran expert, but I wondered if, one, how big this was, and two, if you found any other ones.
I only found that one, and I would say, if my memory serves me right, I didn't have any chapstick on me. But it's probably about the size of like the tip of your finger, kind of.
Okay. Would it be like lengthwise? Could
That's
you?
what I mean, lengthwise. It's about that.
Oh, so pretty tiny, huh?
Yeah. Oh, now I feel like I should jump outside and take a look at
Yeah,
it
yeah.
with a
Could you
flash.
do that? I mean, it's cold and wet, but could you take one for the
It's
team?
not cold and wet underneath the stairs to my basement outside. But it's
Well,
gonna take me a minute if you want to show other
No,
things.
Jerry, don't.
I would totally do it. I'm gonna do it for the next time,
Well,
okay?
I don't know exactly what to make of this because I have not seen something like this where there's just one. And so I did, and I always am cautious when I do this because you get all kinds of weird responses. But I did the Google image search, where you if you're an Android user, I think iPhone has a similar sort of a feature where you
My
can,
iPhone came up with nothing. It
well,
failed me.
this it came up with some there were some weird like cast concrete sculptures and things like that. But then there was also this mention of this, and I'm gonna click over here, this Asian mud dauber wasp. And they, let's see, pull this up. They make a lot of these little somebody referred to them as urns. I don't know why that picture isn't opening up. But what I thought was interesting, Jerry, you live near LeBas Woods, right? Aren't you kind of in that part of
Well, I'm not that. It's a good 15-minute drive away.
okay, okay. Well, there's so here are a bunch of those little nests broken up. This is so these are the creations of an introduced mud dauber species that doesn't seem to be causing any trouble or anything, but it is showing up, or it was first noticed in, I think, somewhere in Quebec, and it's been now showing up. They're out in Colorado, they're in Chicago. The bug guide data. Um, Click on Illinois here. All the sightings from Illinois were in LeBas Woods.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they're
Maybe one rode on me
yeah.
from an expedition.
Well, and
I'm
they're also, there's a lot more sightings listed on iNaturalist. I think I clicked out of that particular screen because I didn't want to confuse myself with too many tabs.
Wait,
But you
what
can
is this
look
one
them up on
called?
iNaturalist too. It's Salifron curvatum is the scientific name, but the Asian mud dauber wasp. Check it out because there's a lot of sightings in the city of Chicago, and it
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not, it's 15-minute drive, but if you were to follow the river, I'm just a few blocks from the river.
okay,
So if you follow the river south and east, I guess
okay.
you'd run right into me from LaValle Woods.
Well, and I don't know. So this tube that you found seems like it might be a little smaller than what these wasps are producing. Um,
Yeah,
but it,
I'll take another look at it, and I'll send you another photo
we'll go.
with something
Yeah,
for reference.
when I looked at this, I was picturing something that was like maybe like the size of my pinky finger down to maybe the second knuckle, like about, an
Yeah, I
inch
mean,
or
it
so.
might be that big. I'm just trying to, it was earlier in the week and I was actually looking to see where ants were coming into the house. I was doing an inspection of the
Yeah,
outer perimeter and
yeah.
found both of them. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Got distracted for a bit.
Well, when you do your second dive into waspdom out there, see if you can find any more of these, because one of the things that I was reading about, just briefly, about their preferences is they like to be in situations just like this. They like to be in locations where they're somewhat protected. Sometimes they're inside a window frame, sometimes they're inside a door frame. This looks like it's got some cover to it too, so it seems like the location might be right.
Yeah.
Um,
To the
and there
right
are,
is a creepy, weird little hatch into this area that's underneath where I am right now. It's like there's the dirt, and then they built the addition on top of just dirt. So it's the back of the house addition, and it goes underneath there. So it's all this debris and weird stuff, but it would be a good place to lay an egg if I was a wasp.
Okay. Well,
I'll try and check in there, but I'm not going in there, Pam.
well, this probably won't make you feel any better about it, but another thing about all of these mud dauber species is that they specialize, what they provision those little nests with is spiders. And it's kind of interesting how they will specialize in different groups of spiders, different types of spiders, whether it's, say, like spiders that don't build webs or spiders that do build webs.
Well, that whole area is a spider festival. So
Well,
perfect.
those blue mud daubers, the ones that take over the yellow like mud dauber nests, they actually they go into a spider's web, but they somehow don't get stuck. But they jiggle the webbing to make the spider think that it's caught some prey. So when the spider comes out, then the mud dauber delivers that paralyzing sting and takes the spider away. It's you cannot make this stuff up.
We need to get some cameras down there.
Yeah. Gotta be
Motion
busy.
detector cameras or something.
But it's crazy stuff, but it's really, really, endlessly fascinating. And this is just
Yeah, you just blew my mind. So
well,
okay, thanks.
let me show you. You too can blow mine. So I showed you those Bug Guide, and Bug Guide, I love Bug Guide. I spend a lot of time and following their links to other sources of information. But this is a really, really cool guy too. Eric Eaton, who is a contributor to Bug Guide. He does a lot of identifications. Bug Guide is all volunteer naturalists who identify pictures that people send in. Well, Bug Eric is his funny little punnily named website blog that he runs, and he gives so much information about these different insects that he chooses to profile. So here's a little thing about the blue mud daubers. Here is some information about, so I was kind of wondering, but this doesn't seem like what you found, Jerry. If we go back again, I hope I'm not making you guys dizzy, but we're going to go to this is that the, oops, nope, sorry. Close your eyes. That's my funny thing for the end. So I found these over on the wall at Potawatomi. These are tiny, tiny. These are each one of these little tubes is probably less than a half an inch in length, and I'm pretty sure that that's what Bug Eric wrote about here. These are another type. These are Aplopus, maybe. I've never heard anybody say that word before, but this is another wasp. It's smaller than those other mud daubers that we were talking about, but they make these tiny little nests and they provision them with spiders. There's the tiny little wasp. And then yeah, they put the paralyzed but not dead spiders inside these tubes. They lay an egg, one egg per tube, and then the developing larvae feeds on those paralyzed but not dead spiders. If the sting were to kill the spider would start to rot, and that wouldn't be any kind of food that you'd want to be feeding that a baby developing wasp would want to eat. So yeah, this is a really cool resource to Bug Eric. I guess I had that one open twice, but something to tuck away. And when you've got some spare time, go ahead and check it out.
Random question, Pam.
Uh-huh.
So that first one with multiple holes in it, is that something that different wasps will continue using?
Oh, like how long will they continue to reuse? I'm not sure. I don't
I'll
know
leave
how
it
long.
alone.
I had found one. So I was participating in an event called Envirothon several years ago up in McHenry County. It's an annual, like it's a scholastic bowl for nature nerds in high school. They can earn scholarship money. And I was doing, I think it was the wildlife station. And there was one of these next to my station. And it had yet another kind of wasp, but I kind of wonder if it was maybe a parasitic wasp of some sort that was hanging out around it. So there could be, I'm sure there's probably a whole ecology, a whole raft of connections around these nests that are beyond what the original species was who created it. So yeah, I don't know. That's another thing. You might need to set up some cameras that go from year to year to see how long
There
they
you go.
remain in use. Because those blue mud daubers, if they do take over existing nests, that maybe they'd come back and use it again and again. I don't know. One question of many might be what remains behind when the adult wasp chews its way out of there and flies away. Is there a bunch of spider exoskeletons? Do they consume the entire spider while they're in there? Is there a bunch of debris in there? Do they need to be cleaned out? Oh, I don't know. This could turn into a major research project over the next few months. Super cool though, Jerry, and I really appreciate you sharing that because we were kind of working on an insect theme for tonight anyway, and these were really great.
Yeah, thanks for digging into it.
So yeah, we'll see what more we can find out about that, and see too, yeah, if you can find out if there's any more tubes like that, because I really have not seen anything like that other than these.
Yeah, I thought it
which
was
are
weird
always
too that
in
there was only one.
big groups. Okay, yeah, we'll see. And it could be it got interrupted. It could have decided, I don't want to be here anymore. Maybe it's over at your neighbor's house now.
I'll sneak in the backyards.
You're right. Well, folks, it's a little bit after 9, so we're getting close to the end here. This is I don't know if it's an April Fool's. I did not know what to make of this. It was from our IT manager, and he found this. He emailed me this photo on Sunday night, so it was a little bit ahead of April Fool's Day. Now we're the day after April Fool's Day. He's questioned whether this is some type of a frog. And the email said frog question mark. He said this thing was breathing. Now, I don't know. To me, it looks like something in the embryonic phase, like, like these are veins underneath a very thin skin. But then I zoomed in, and I think these are just marks, like maybe this thing that I suspect might be plastic or rubber. It got tumbled around a little bit. It looks like it's sitting on a manhole cover and some concrete or some asphalt. So not great frog habitat anyway. These toes don't look like something we would see on at least not a North American frog. And then I swear these ridges here look like something like, it came out of a mold. Like this was something that came out of a mold. What I don't understand is why he thought it was breathing. Now, I haven't responded yet to his email. I did share this with Ryan, and Ryan had similar thoughts. He really couldn't think of anything that would look like this. Even a frog that is not yet a frog, that is still developing, it goes from an egg to a tadpole stage. So this thing with, indistinct eyes and this weird sort of blunt nostrilless nose. It just doesn't seem to add up to anything other than something that's not alive. I'm going to ask our IT guy what he saw that made him believe it was breathing. I did get a photo last summer from a couple who was walking in one of our parks and had found what they thought was a large creepy crawly thing, and they wanted to know what it was, and that was a fishing lure. So I don't know, if there's any chance that this could be anywhere near where someone might have been fishing, but I don't know, it doesn't really even look like a fish would want it. But I thought I would stick it out there as a little belated April Fool's for you guys. If I do find out from IT guy that this is a that he picked it up and it's living in his terrarium in his family room now, I will definitely let you know. But seemed like a kind of a head scratching funny haha and funny weird way to end tonight's session. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what I have tonight, folks. Appreciate your time. Oh, you know what? We did have a couple of chats here. Let's take a look. Okay, so Sarah, thanks for that. So white pelicans year-round at Starved Rock. So that might be another place if they are breeding there. Might be another place we can go and look for those breeding bumps that the birds develop. Was there any bloodroot at Norris Lord? We didn't see any. So the hepatica at the native garden at Potawatomi was up and blooming 2 weeks ago. So whether I should also mention I had to leave early to get out to Hickory Nose, so I didn't see any bloodroot. I know it is blooming in some other areas around here. In fact, I need to get over to Delnor Woods because we have a sign for bloodroot, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be up over there. Another thing to look for at Norris Woods is the twin leaf. That's a pretty early blooming one, and I didn't make it far enough along on the trail to see if the twin leaf was up either. So lots of things to look for. And maybe you can join us on Saturday at 1 p.m. at the induction ceremony for Norris Woods. Anyway, folks, it is now 8:08. Not only did we start on time, but we have now gone well beyond our good-natured hour. So I appreciate you hanging in here till the very end. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Enjoy what might be some return of winter tomorrow. And we'll see you back again next week. Have a good
Thank
one,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night.
Pam. Good night.
Pam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Pam.
Bye-bye.